Oh, coming at ya. We are upstairs, and I mean all the way upstairs in the Alico building, the 21st floor here in Central Texas. The Pete Sousa Show, presented by Sousa. Hey-o! Little bit of American Nightmare featuring Howard Stern, Rob Zombie. That's how Howard opens his show every day. And I've been listening to Howard since I was a kid. So a little bit of, get myself kind of vibed up, Mike.
I get it.
Mike Hamilton on the Wheels of Steel. And moments from now, well, I'll say hour or so, Mike's going to sit down with me. We're going to tape an episode of The Payoff with Pete. Mike has been like a white whale. We finally got him. We got him on the hook. We're going to reel him in.
You're fishing in the wrong waters.
No, we're looking forward. Mike has a great message, and I'm just can't wait. So, and that'll be posted tomorrow. So be looking for that. The Payoff with Pete.
There you go.
All right, Mike, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Today, by the way, just a quick update. Some news. I don't know that you want to call it breaking, but a few hours ago, the Cowboys, we know they need help. We know they need depth at several different positions, but they have acquired Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 7th-round pick from the Carolina Panthers for a 2025 4th-round pick. As sources told ESPN's Todd Archer. This was earlier this morning. Just to give a little context, a little background, Mingo is a 2nd-round pick out of Mississippi State 1 year ago, 2023. He's got 12 catches for 121 yards this season. I'll say this. He was in a logjam situation at wide receiver in Carolina. One school of thought says if you can't get onto the field when you're playing for the worst team in the NFL, maybe that's your problem. But we'll have an opportunity now. He'll get some run with the Cowboys. We'll have an opportunity to see how good he is. He'll certainly he's someone who the Cowboys need, and it's also a guy who was a 2023 2nd-round pick, who's not like a splashy name. But hey, look, maybe this is a move for the future. You get a 7th-round pick out of it. So Cowboys fans hopeful that this goes in your direction and goes the right way. I hope your game on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles goes my direction. Speaking of good football, I've got a Cam Skatabo jersey on today. Why, Pete, are you wearing a Cam Skatabo jersey? Well, one, because I told my cohorts on Inside the 12 that I do the show. We're taping the show tomorrow. I'm going to try to incorporate this into the show because I told him that Cam Skatabo was the best running back in America, and he had 257 all-purpose yards last week for the Arizona State Sun Devils. And now he's going to be maybe out this week with an undisclosed injury. They are taking on Arizona State. Who are they playing? Let me check real quick on my Google Doc. They're playing Iowa State plays Kansas. Arizona State is playing UCF. They're at home against UCF. But Skatabo right now is doubtful to questionable, so this representation of his jersey might be the most action you see from him in a few weeks. That's kind of a bummer, but the guy's amazing. If you get a chance to watch him when he's back on the field, make sure you do. Also, Cam Stewart, segment 2. There's a very good reason for Cam's bump today. He is the czar of Locked On Baylor. And in case you missed it, if you don't know, Locked On Baylor is a show every day, every weekday, that you can go to get a breakdown of all Baylor basketball, Baylor football. Mike, you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks. I was just sniffing. Hey, by the way, did you see the Mike Williams thing?
No, tell me.
That the Steelers got him from the Jets?
Oh, really?
Well, I'm just saying it's a decent wide receiver pickup. For
them. And he was obviously like in no man's land with the Jets. The Jets, that situation's kind of screwy. But that's probably the only move my buddy Joe Douglas, who's the GM of the Jets, has made himself this year, although he probably would never admit to that. But we know that the owner fired the coach, and there's been a lot of puppet mastering going on there, in my opinion, with Woody Johnson, not giving his general manager, Joe Douglas, the opportunity to do his job, which Joe has proven to be very good at. But back to what I was talking about with Cam, Baylor basketball got absolutely annihilated last night. It was the game was played at a neutral site, but it was actually in Spokane, where Gonzaga is based. And it was Gonzaga and Baylor. The game tipped off. If you missed it, you're not alone. The game tipped off at, I think, 10:40 Central. So if you're a Baylor grad and you're watching on the East Coast, it tipped off at like midnight. Mason, everything going all right?
It's good, man. All inside baseball here. We're good. We're good.
So nothing like Mason comes in here. He lacks finesse, should we just say? So Mason comes in here, you can't miss him. So Mason comes in here, and then all of a sudden, it's a big secret that he's talking to Mike.
He's doing his job.
So I know.
Yeah,
I know he's doing his job. I'm just kind of giving people a look behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, there's just two grown men, probably less than 5 feet away from me.
Yeah.
Gets my attention a little bit. I probably, as a performer, should not be affected.
Are you a performer? That makes you sound like you work for the circus or something.
You get it. You know what I mean. So the Baylor game was a bummer. I watched the first 20 minutes this morning, 25 minutes before I had to come over here. And a couple things I picked up from watching the game was, one, Jay Williams, who was the color analyst for ESPN, alongside Roxy Bernstein, who called the game. Those guys both did like an awesome job. And I thought Jay and Cam and I were talking about this a little bit offline. I'm sure we'll bring it up in our convo. But when things were happening on the floor, I was thinking, wow, I wish Baylor would be more aggressive defensively. And then Jay Williams would say it right away. And it was one of those things where I don't know if it's a shame because it was so obvious, but like part of it was the defensive pressure that Baylor may have lacked last night. Another thing, too, that was missing from what I saw this morning is just chemistry. And, you're Scott Drew, your work is cut out for you, right? It's cut out for you in the offseason where you're replacing so many, pretty much almost all of your key elements from last year's team, except for Jaden Nunn and Langston Love. And last year's team was very good. Lost in the second round of the tournament, could have done a lot better than that, but a very good team. So you've got a situation where new pieces, a lot of talent, got to get the chemistry going. And last night showed that it is nowhere near where they need to be. And certain things can be improved, like quick fixes. And Cam and I will discuss that in his segment coming up. But Locked on Baylor, Cam went live right after that game. And it's a great place to go to get your breakdown. And I was talking with King McClure this morning. He's going to join us later this week or next week, because I'm dying to get his like State of the Union for this Baylor basketball team after last night's game. They play Arkansas over the weekend on Saturday at American Airlines. And that'll be cool just because it's John Calipari's first big game at Arkansas. And, it's an opportunity for Baylor to get right kind of in there somewhat back way closer to home than they were last night in Washington State. That's a weird road trip, too. You're going from Central Texas all the way to the Pacific Northwest. And for some of these guys, it was their first college basketball game, right? Like VJ Edgecombe and Rob Wright. It's a tough place to play your first game. So looking forward to seeing Baylor kind of improve. And really, that's kind of the only way they can go right now. Today is a huge day. Obviously, it's Election Day. And what does Election Day mean to you? Well, I'm asking that question to myself, if you didn't notice. It's taken a weird turn. I think for a lot of us, it has. When I was a kid, my father was just locked on Peter Jennings, and news coverage was a big deal in my house. And obviously back then, more traditional, more right down Main Street. And it was a lot of fun to kind of be involved with my dad. You could stay up later. It was, anything back then that would like supersede your regularly scheduled programming and throw it out the window. As a little kid, those shows were like, it just seemed like they were like concrete, fit into those time slots as somebody who grew up watching a lot of TV. So for that, like Family Ties to get blown out for, election coverage was like, whoa. And the fact that I got to stay up a little later to watch it was pretty cool too. And I appreciated the sense of drama that came with it. I think as a kid, I was out of touch with how serious everything really was. But there certainly was a sense of drama. There's certainly drama now. I'm very interested, like most of America, to see how this whole thing shakes out. I can say the only thing that I can do today is vote, and I will vote, and I know where I'm going to go to vote. And I think that is something that we all get to do. And in other countries, they don't get to do it. And regardless of what you'll hear when they get to do it, it doesn't matter. We get to vote today, and I think by voting, we all get some skin in the game, right? And I think by voting, we get the opportunity afterwards to commiserate with whoever else we want to commiserate with, to talk about the state of the union, our own union, and as we see politics. And hey, but that's all I can do today to affect change or to do have a voice. Mike, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I just hope that there's no ill effects tonight.
Of course, I was hoping there would be, Mike.
Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that, like, I asked that recordings be stopped here at like 4:00 because I want to get home just in case there's issues. I just want to make sure that I'm not separated from people I love or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mike.
And I know it sounds awful, but who the hell knows? I mean, we've had some real rhetoric. So
yeah.
We'll see.
And that's and that speaks to,
but
but
you should vote, like you say.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing. Get out there, make your voice heard.
Yeah, get out there.
That's it. I don't care who you vote for, just vote.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. And my whole thing is like, people love to talk about this stuff, and it's fine. Like, it's whatever. Talk about it. Do whatever gets you fulfilled or is stimulating to you around this stuff, or maybe you feel like it's moving toward a change. But if you don't vote, I mean, like, really, what could you say? So I think that's obviously a major league deal today, just to get out and vote.
Well, you said that earlier, like, if you don't vote, do you really have anything to say about it? And that's, and I'm sure that people, can poo-poo that or whatever, but but that's the way I believe as well. I mean, just get out and exercise your options,
Yeah.
I tell you one thing I didn't vote for. Anybody who is not opposed, I don't understand why they even put them on the ballot at this point. If there's not two choices on the ballot, what do I care? It's going to happen anyway.
It's a good point, Mike. And obviously that's somebody who has voted. Did you vote today?
No, I voted last week. And I think you should run for office, Pete. Maybe you could run in one of those unopposed elections.
Somehow I feel
county
like
commissioner or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want nothing to do with any of that. But yeah, go ahead, get out and vote today. The handicapping of the whole thing, I got people calling me, telling me it's going to be a landslide one way, other people saying it's going to be a landslide the other way. Certain people, probably half of the country, are going to be feeling pretty defeated later on in the day. So hopefully we can wake up and just love each other tomorrow and everybody get up and go to work. And that's the deal, or whenever we get the results of this thing. I want to talk a little Baylor football off the top, and why this team is reaching another height, another echelon. And we had a chance to have Matt Jones in here yesterday, who is in his 6th year at Baylor, West Texas guy, has played in 2 Sugar Bowls, has been instrumental in both of those Sugar Bowls. Obviously, the most recent one, Baylor won. Has been up and down with this program, and has always been sort of like a lighthouse for the guys on the team, and has become a leader for this team. And he is somebody who just kind of exudes what you want the football team affiliated with your school with what you want to have. There's passion, there's faith, there's smarts, there's dedication. There's a fire in the belly, right? As a football fan. And there's a good man with a young daughter. He had his daughter. Matt Jones had his daughter when he was 16 years old. And now that's a fork in the road for a lot of people. And Matt was open with us about saying he didn't grow up in the most unbelievable of circumstances, as far as like, born on third base, thought you hit a triple. That was not his scenario growing up. And instead of going left when his daughter was born, he went right, started doing the right things, started doing the hard things, stayed in school, but found a way to make money and generate income so he could support his daughter. And, gets to school, gets to Baylor, starts to pursue the dream, and meets a woman, falls in love, and now he got married this last summer. And I was joking with him and saying, I asked him, I said, how old are you? He said, 24. I said, so you're basically 34. I said, out there, you look like a young man playing football. We can all agree on that. And this is a guy who should be playing at the next level. More than likely will be. This time next year, be playing on Sundays in the NFL. But he laughed at that. And he said, yeah, and I think that lends itself to being of assistance to some of the younger guys on the team now. But I spoke with him a little bit about where faith comes in, right, with this Baylor football team, and how they've really come together, right? Last year was a very difficult year for members of the Baylor football team. The year before was kind of lukewarm, right? And there's a lot of – it was easy to get down on the Baylor football team this year when they lost however many in a row. People are calling for Coach Aranda to be fired. Really, the only people who know are the people inside the locker room, or the people inside the room. And again, another thing Matt and I talked about, the only people who know are the people in the room and on staff, and along with coaches. And it's they knew what it took, what it was going to take to stay together and turn it around, and they did. But back to the faith component, I was like, it seems like there's something magic about your team now. The ball is starting to bounce your way. You're winning close games. You're blowing teams out. The attitude around the team is a feeling of one and unity. And he said, it's interesting. You bring up faith. Sawyer Robertson, the starting quarterback, who is very skilled and more than equipped physically and mentally to be a Power 4 conference quarterback anywhere in the country. He was a 4-star recruit, also another West Texas guy. And he leads by example, but is also very quick to distribute praise, whether it's among his teammates or to praise God in his post-game interviews. It's very, his faith and his humility is out there first. And that's not a knock on anybody else who's played quarterback here this year, especially DeQuan Finn. You talk to teammates, they love that dude. But there's something happening around Sawyer Robertson that I talked to Matt yesterday, and he said, other players on the team are starting to be more vocal about doing the right things, about their faith. And he said, and that started with Sawyer being the leader, because Sawyer now is out there in front talking about doing the right stuff, right? Maybe going to a point talking about his faith and belief in God, where he almost makes himself a little vulnerable. The way Sawyer Robertson sees it and the way I sees it, he's actually displaying more strength. But when somebody is out there talking about what they believe in, what is moving them forward in the right direction, and you see their ability, Sawyer went through some rough stuff football-wise over the course of the past 2 seasons, whether it was injury and then poor play after the injury and people saying, he stinks, he doesn't need to be here. Then he tries to win the job in camp. He doesn't get the job. Again, a much ballyhooed prospect coming out of high school. It's like, man, very easy for somebody to be like, where do I go from here? Right? Well, where he's gone is the same place he always goes. You dig deep, you find the gear, you find the faith, and you move on and you block out the noise. And I thought it was really revealing that Matt Jones mentioned, hey, we are now all as one moving forward. And it's got a lot to do with the guy who is out front now, who is leading by example, but also putting his faith out there. And, we have now had other guys talk about their faith and their beliefs in each other and a higher power. and something's happening. And look, you can say I'm crazy. You can say that Baylor's all God squad and all that. Look, man, the ball starts to bounce your way when you have a belief that's greater than you as a team. I can go back to me being an alcoholic and getting sober. Like, the moment you understand that you are not in charge and that there's a power much greater than you in charge, and then you find a way to believe in that higher power being in charge and turning over certain aspects of your life, things that you can't control, to that higher power, and then controlling what you can, stuff starts to happen, man. That's all I can say. And I think that it's pretty cool to see a team that was struggling turn the corner and celebrate a little bit. And after all this, they're probably going to lose to West Virginia. Not next week, but after. They're on a bye this week. But what can I say? I love being a prisoner of the moment, and I love celebrating good stuff. On the other side of this break, there's no celebration going on here right now around Baylor. Baylor basketball particularly. We talked to Cam Stewart about last night's game against Gonzaga. We mentioned it off the top. We get into the nitty-gritty coming up on the other side of this break. The Pete Sousa Show, presented by Slovacek's, powered by the Rogue Media Network. Back with the breakdown after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference, because my stress level when we shut down to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win, and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fit. Sports.
Cam Stewart, host of Locked On Baylor.
Spokane, by the way.
It was in Spokane.
Yeah.
So it was basically.
Yes. Yeah, it's less than a mile from the campus.
All right, do we have to start over, Mike? We're good? Okay. I just want to make sure. We don't have any audio issues. So, Cam, 101-63.
Happy Erection Day.
101-63 is the final score.
Yeah.
Like, I woke up. I went to bed right after Monday Night Football. I DVR'd. I was going to watch it. I watched the first 25 minutes this morning. I will watch the rest because I'll end up doing some Baylor hoops later. But as for right now, was it as bad as the score indicates?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And the sad part is it wasn't so much a talent differential so much as it was effort. Like, Gonzaga just put out a winning effort the whole time. And Gonzaga's a really good team. I think Baylor's going to be a really good team too. But there's parts of it, which I'm sure you might have even already seen in the little bit that you've watched, is like, part of it is Gonzaga is returning 80% of their scoring from last year. You know, they bring a lot of guys back, and Baylor is replacing 4 or 5 starters again. A lot of new guys on this team, and the first 2 or 3 guys off the bench are also new because Langston Love didn't play. So there was some of that, and you'll see it, especially with their communication on defense. But most of it was an effort thing, which was disappointing.
Let's take a detour real quick. You mentioned Langston Love. Towards the end of last season, I was doing a game at West Virginia, and it was like, okay, he's going to come back from the ankle. It was every game. It was like, he's going to come back. He's a game time decision, right? Played sparingly for the rest of the year. And truly for me, hearing at the beginning of the broadcast, like Langston Love is still dealing with that same issue, correct?
Yep.
What does his future hold as far as his availability, being able to play? What have you heard?
We just got cleared, like fully cleared, only like 2 weeks ago. So, and
forgive me, did he have a surgery over the summer?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did.
So we had a surgery on that ankle.
Okay.
Scott had said he's not really going to fully ramp up to where he needs to be until conference schedule, which is 2 months away, or a month and a half, I guess, the end of December this year. But what kind of gets bothersome is that Scott said on Friday, everyone's available. And then Langston Love's not available, which is that was that cat and mouse song and dance we went through last year. Like you were talking about every game. Well, is he going to be available to play? And he's had a couple different injuries. And it reminded me of 2022, the year after they won the national championship, when LJ Cryer got a foot injury in January, and he was day to day until the season ended in the middle of March. And never. It
was funny because you and I had talked about that last year. You know, is this going to be another LJ Cryer? And I said, no. Like it seemed like he was ready to go in Morgantown, and then it was that same number for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and again, that's not necessarily on the player, right?
No,
I mean,
sure.
right? Like, and Langston, that was 2 or 3 separate injuries last year, which was real unfortunate. It's just like. I, as a fan, outside of being an analyst too, it's like I had to not even put Langston in the equation at the end of last year. Okay. If you get him, that's great. That's gravy. But after what we did every freaking game for LJ Cryer in 2022, it's like you can only go with the guys that aren't questionable, like, you know. And I was surprised when Scott said on Friday that, yep, everyone's available and ready to go. I didn't think Langston was going to be available, and he wasn't. And I think that's okay to slow roll this thing, because when he gets out there, and if he's close to 100%, which is, again, an if coming off of surgery, he is one of the most valuable players in the country, because he's a guy who can give you double figures off the bench, can score inside and out, and play good enough defense, and is very switchable as a defensive coach. So, that is,
I think it really helps too with this team with all the turnover to have your leaders available and in action, whether that's working. I'm not saying he's not, but like I know that a guy like that being on the floor, that goes great lengths. Okay, we're gonna play a little game, right? Because I know you did watch the whole game. You went on Locked On Baylor last night. People can still grab that pod and that YouTube video and check it out. It's really, especially. Honestly, you're a dream, because on a morning like today, when the game was literally, I mean, if you're a Baylor grad on the East Coast, that started at like midnight.
Yeah.
So, you know, you probably didn't have a chance to watch it. And there's so many new pieces. These are opportunities for Baylor fans and people all over college basketball to become familiarized with these players. I want to go through each player. At least the starters and one D.
Can I bitch about one thing first? This is
sure.
very quick.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about what time it tipped off, and it ended up becoming about 10:40 Central Time. And I'm on ESPN2, which is where it's supposed to be. And I am literally, Pete, being forced to watch the Monday Night Football postgame show.
Yeah.
Like, the game is over. The game is done. They don't have any obligations to us to really show us the postgame show, apparently. Apparently, that's not the case, because Baylor and Gonzaga is tipped off. I'm like, wait a minute. What is going on here?
Was the postgame show Van Pelt?
Yes.
Okay.
They moved the Baylor game to ESPNU so that they could put on ESPN2 the same post-game show they had on ESPN. It was like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
So
I don't know.
I watched.
I get the NFL's a monster.
Yeah.
Trust me. That's not lost on me, but it's like, you already have it on your bigger network. And here you've got a top 10 matchup that you've promised us, and you're going to move that to ESPNU. Thankfully, I do have ESPNU. But you know, Pete, not everyone has that. You can have ESPN and ESPN2 and not have ESPNU. That's a realistic thing. Anyway.
By the way, that football game was awesome. And you know what I appreciated being like a Big 12 guy is that for overtime, Just Baker and Mahomes were out there.
Oh man,
did you see that?
Yeah, do you remember that game, 2016?
Yes.
Oh,
and
that is a formative Big 12 memory.
So there they were again last night
what a freaking
for the coin toss, and you could tell like there was respect, but there was like tension. It was like I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is a cool little rivalry.
And it's funny too that like
these guys don't like each other on the field at all. That's the feeling I got.
And it's funny that like Tech was like, oh my God, like we pulled a Tech thing again. You know, Baker had walked on at Tech and they basically picked Davis Webb over him. Yeah. And so he went to OU and he wins the Heisman, goes to playoff, obviously has a great career at Oklahoma. And so for that time, Tech fans are like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how did we fumble this? Oh, it's so classic Tech. And everyone's laughing at him. And what they actually got was one of the best NFL quarterbacks in history out of it. So he didn't win anything at Tech, but at least you can be like, but he went here. You can keep your Baker. We've got Pat Mahomes.
They're dining out on that, dude.
Yeah.
Like even
they will suck on that nipple,
Chiefs
man.
Games, there's Texas Tech advertisements. Like on the ribbon at Chiefs games. That's obviously Mahomes related.
Oh yeah, and like vice versa in terms of like you watch any Tech game, there's going to be a red Mahomes jersey in there.
Yeah,
any game, any red Chiefs Mahomes jersey. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's get back to the game. No, I was happy.
It was necessary.
Yeah. All right. Newcomers and changes. Let's start at the top with somebody who you've talked about a little bit already. Norshad Omer, 15 points, 9 rebounds in 30 minutes. Give me a grade.
Oh, last night?
Yep.
B-.
B-.
Which is maybe the best grade I'll give out. He had some moments where he had some miscommunication stuff, but I thought he had some real good one-on-one defending. He was rebounding the heck out of it. He is not a polished finisher necessarily, which we kind of knew coming in. He's a good like offensive rebound putback guy. That's how he gets a lot of his points. But what I saw from him last night is someone who's capable of playing the 5, which is what I was concerned about. A guy at 6'8" or so, but a grittiness, a toughness that everyone talks about that he could play center. I think I saw enough to say he can play center, which is going to be big for Baylor. But overall, not a great game, but I saw some flashes from him that I really liked.
All right. How about Josh Ojamwuna? 10 points, 6 rebounds. He's going to be thrust into more of a role. He's going to have to contribute, this season, more so than he did last year.
Let's just say it's pretty important that Norchad can play the 5 a little bit, too. I don't think Josh had a great game.
What does he need to improve on?
I don't think he moves laterally very well, and I think he is a sneaky good athlete, so I'm wondering why that hasn't kind of come to fruition. He has not been a good enough rebounder in his time, which was the same problem Flo Thamba had. And when Baylor was playing great man-to-man defense in 21 and 22, Flo was a good one-on-one defender against the other team's big man. And when they couldn't do that, and there was kind of more on Flo's plate, it became a disaster. And I fear that could happen with Josh O as well. I'm taking all of this with a grain of salt being game 1. But I expected a Josh O leap last year that I don't think we really got. And he's certainly going to need it this year because they're thin at that position. He is the tallest guy on the team, and he's talked about kind of a personal like vengeance here. He needs to have a good year. And I don't think we saw that. He got out rebounded by VJ Edgecombe last night, guard.
Yeah.
So I don't think he did enough on the defensive end. And again, Pete, you've seen the athleticism. Like he's not Jonathan Chanwa-Chachua in that department, but he should be able to give you some of that rim running a little bit. We really only saw one play in that game, which was in the first half of like a pick and roll lob to Josh O. Like he needs to do a little bit. He needs to do some more of that.
Okay. VJ Edgecombe, you just mentioned him. Let's get to more guards than Buckingham Palace, right?
Yes.
Fran Priscilla likes to say. I got 4 guards who I really want to talk about.
By the way, Rothstein said Miami more guards than Shawshank. And I said, well, I've seen the film. I think the problem there is that the guards did not stop a prison break from happening. So maybe
there's some other problems.
Miami did not have a
bad
team. Did not have a good team last year. Anyway, guards, let's do it.
VJ Edgecombe, Just 4 points, 7 assists.
Yeah.
7 rebounds, 1 assist. By the way, Rob Wright, 6 assists. Everybody else pretty much pedestrian, distributing the basketball.
Yep. And VJ looked like his first college game.
I'm looking at 11 team assists, Cam. That's bad. Yeah. Okay. So VJ, go ahead.
Just looked like his first college game. Very passive. Not really getting involved much in the offense. I expect big things from VJ. I'm hoping this was just a little blip on it, because this goes into Rob Wright, who did have a good game, had some real nice finishes, man, and distributed the ball well. Defensively, it's a work in progress, as most freshmen are. But I don't often look at high school competition because I think it's moot once you get to college, especially in the Big 12. It's such a big difference. But VJ did not play the highest level necessarily of the prep circuit. Played for a pretty good prep team in Lou High. Rob Wright did play at the highest level. He played for Montverde. He played with Cooper Flagg. He played with guys who were playing with and against guys who were going to play in the NBA. And he looked like he was kind of ready to get out there and ready for this moment and whatever his role was. VJ just looked a little bit passive in this game. Fran is really high on Rob Wright, saying that he'll stay 2 years and that next year, at worst, he'll just be all Big 12, but he expects him to be an All-American. And you saw flashes of that, man. I mean, the kid is not big, not NBA big at 6'1", but certainly really crafty and had some good finishes around the basket. So I loved what he gave you. And I obviously think VJ is going to come around. I think he's going to be a good defender, which we've heard from some people, and can jump through the gym, has the highlight of the night. As long as you don't show the score bug, he has this like baptism dunk over Mark Few's son. That was hopefully something that he'll do in the middle of games when they're still in it.
What about early on in the game? This is part of what I saw. Jay Williams calls out Jaden Nunn because,
which I called out in my living room beforehand.
So we agreed Jay Williams did a great job last night, by the way. But so Jay calls out Jaden Nunn, and it's basically because guys are outside on the perimeter just able to throw these great passes because there's nobody guarding them. There's nobody up in them. And
I was screaming.
Yeah. So Jaden Nunn's defense, that's who the guy is, a defensive stopper, at least on that play. What wasn't there? Was that indicative of his performance all night?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had some moments on defense later on in the game. He got a couple steals, but I'm like screaming. I'm like, get in his freaking shirt, man. Yeah. Like, stop giving him. It's like a pass rusher who does not try to collapse the pocket. It's like you're giving him this time and this space. And Gonzaga, every year, they're the best team without the ball. They're so great at cutting without the ball and motion and hunting mismatches, which is what they did all night. And part of the reason why they were able to hunt mismatches on these switches is because there's not enough ball pressure. And it was that way from all Baylor guards, but especially, you expect more from Jaden Nunn. And I gave Nunn a bit of a pass last year. I thought he still had a good year defensively, but I was like, you know what? There's a lot of deficiencies on the defensive end that it's tough for Jaden Nunn to kind of cover all those things up. But when you look at the personnel this year with Roach, Edgecombe, and Rob Wright off the bench, Langston Love will be in there eventually. Like, you've got guards, you've got combo guards. You got guards who are going to score. You got guards who are going to score outside, guards who are going to score inside. Jaden Nunn could do a little bit of all those things, but what I really need from you is to be a dog defensively. I need you to go against the best perimeter player night in, night out, and shut him down.
Yeah, and I think that lends itself to the leadership portion of the whole deal we talked about earlier. And that's why having Langston Love back in uniform is going to be so important. Just guys that are there doing it by example.
And I think part of, by the way, replacing 4 starters is not just like a communication thing necessarily, but also guys finding their roles. And I think that'll be one that Jaden Nunn will figure out.
Well, I will tell you, I think this is a product, this embarrassing loss is a product of the connective tissue that Gonzaga has that Baylor has none of right now.
Yep.
I mean, that's a huge advantage in game, especially in game 1. So it's a little worrisome. Well, here's we're going to talk about one more player, then I'm going to get to something you said. So Jeremy Roach.
Yeah. He play?
9 points. 3 assists, 2 rebounds in 27 minutes. So yeah, he played all right.
I just, with Roach, just needed more command. The guy is a natural point guard. He says, I'm the point guard. And Rob Wright had a better game running secondary point. I just need Baylor was playing ISO ball all night, which is not what they've ever been. They're going from, a John Jacobs offense to whatever the Steve Henson offense is, which was very successful. He was running the offense when OU went to the Final Four with Buddy Hield and those guys, and he coached Trae Young as well. Like, it has high volume 3-point shooting, but it's not ISO ball 3-point shooting. It's kind of like the Celtics in that way they're not shooting threes just because we can't get anything inside. There's movement. There's, again, exploiting mismatches on the perimeter. And there was just none of that last night. It was too much ISO, too much dribbling, as the Rockland High coach Fred Damon would say all the time. Just too much dribbling.
Yeah.
There's so much of the game that can be simplified down to that. And Jeremy Roach just needs to have more command of what this offense is going to be. That's all, because that's your point guard, and it's a guy who's played a lot of games. So need more of that, because they did not have that. It was a lot of one-on-one. And Baylor, while they have a ton of talent, they're not going to win a lot of games one-on-one. And in the Big 12, you're not going to do that.
Talk to me about the coaching performance that you saw. Scott Drew, I feel like we can't grade him. The guy's ungradable. He's so great. But if we were to grade him, what would you give him?
A D.
A D?
Yeah, I mean, this was – look, I know there's that connective tissue we talk about, but giving up 50 points and a half cannot be acceptable. It can't be. I know you're on the road. I know it's a top 10 team. 50 points can't be acceptable and a half. They did that twice. Gave up 49 in the first half, and I was like, okay, it can't get much worse than that. And it did. They gave up 52 in the second half. And again, the effort thing, like, a lot of that is on a coaching staff. I was thinking there was going to be some point in the game that Scott was going to call a timeout and just say, hey, guys, forget the scoreboard. Show me some pride here. Like, show me some heart. Show me some care factor, like Dave Aranda likes to talk about, and ignore the scoreboard. And I think they did that for about 3 minutes. It was a 25-point Gonzaga lead. They got down to 13. They had a little 16-4 run. And in a blink, in the next media timeout, it's 27. It's the largest lead of the night. Like, Gonzaga got, like, Baylor landed one punch, one good jab on them, and Gonzaga said, like, drew some blood and said, oh shit, and just started nailing him back. Like, and I think part of that's on coaches, of, like, not having guys ready to play. Of course, Scott Drew is a Hall of Famer and a great coach. He's going to have these guys ready, but this was not a good performance by anyone in this game. Anyone.
Well, you mentioned,
and I'm sure he would say that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for his post game, but I can't find it. You
they
mentioned
had a flight to catch.
What'd you say?
They had a flight to catch.
You mentioned effort. What level of effort do you feel like, from a 1 to 10, was exhibited team wide last night?
4.
A 4.
4 or 5. And contrast it to Gonzaga. Gonzaga was a 10.
Yeah.
If we're being fair, Gonzaga, and that's not an excuse for Baylor, but Gonzaga played hard all night long. Like, from the tip, they just played harder than Baylor did. It was perplexing. Yeah, 4 or 5 for Baylor. And on Saturday, they're going to take on Arkansas, 2 top 20 games to top 20 opponents to start the season. They're going to put out a much better effort on Saturday.
Well, we saw A&M lose, and UCF is a tough place to play. That's a Big 12 school.
Baylor's 1-0 there.
Baylor is 1-0 there. They are, yes.
Johnny.
Kansas is 0-1. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right. So I guess the last thing I have for you is, going forward, what's a bright spot that this team can build on going into that game? Because this Arkansas game is like one of those neutral site home games pretty much, because it's in American Airlines in Dallas.
A lot of hogs there.
Yeah. I was hoping that I was going to get to call the game, but John Triffin is, hey. I'm
going to buy tickets. You want to
go? No. But my boy Shrift got hooked up. Maybe I will go. It depends. That could be an idea, Cam.
Tickets aren't too cheap. Well, me and one of my buddies from college are going to go.
Now, would you ever think about getting, that's a question I have for you. Would you ever think about getting credentials so you're locked on?
Oh yeah, I could have got credentials for this game.
Yeah.
I want to go as a fan.
Okay.
Yeah. Hope going forward.
You hope going forward, what can they build on? And then one last question.
Yeah, I think the hope is still there. Like, this game's not a complete wash, but it's game one with an almost entirely new lineup. For all intents and purposes, a completely new lineup. And you're facing a team with a ton of experience. It's a true road game, even though it's not played on their campus. It was played a half mile away, which you knew coming in. That's not an excuse, but there's only so much that I can really take from this game. The effort is what disappointed me, but in terms of the basketball stuff, they've got that figured out. I think this team, or they're going to have it figured out. Like, I think this team has a lot of talent. I think they've got a great coach. I think they are a top 10 team. So it's the worst loss ever by a top 10 team in the season opener, but I think it's all ahead of them. This is not even close to the finished product of this team.
Okay, let's.
You know how they say, like, your broadcast, your first one's your worst one?
Yeah.
Like, that could be the case for Baylor with this loss, and it should be. They shouldn't lose any game by more than 30.
And maybe if you're Scott Drew, you kind of learn a lesson. Like, maybe we should stay away from these games so early with so many.
That's an interesting point, Pete. Because the last couple of years they've done neutral site games that have not been neutral site, and Baylor fans bitch about it. I personally don't care. I think it's good to get in a road environment because the Big 12 has some of the best road environments in all of college basketball. So if you're going to be a top 10 team and playing in the Big 12, you can't be like, oh, well, it was a road game.
Yeah.
That's not what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
But what I am worried about is, like, this is third straight year they have done one of these and they have just flat out gotten their ass kicked. Just not even close. They've been
Marquette, Michigan State, now this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marquette, Milwaukee, Michigan State, and Detroit, and then this. And it's like each of them have been like by 25 points or more, like actually like flat out getting their ass kicked. And each of those first two times they lost in the second round in the tournament. So I'm like, and they didn't win the Big 12. So it's like, how much is this really preparing for you? It is my question for that. But like, I don't mind, don't shy away. They're going to have another one. They're going to go up to Stores and play UConn in a couple of weeks, actually about a month. But I'm not saying shy away from it, but it's like, how many times do we need to get our ass kicked before it becomes a lesson, to get it? How many times do we need to get our ass kicked before it's a kick in the ass?
So, all right, last one for you. This doesn't matter, but I'm curious. Baylor Nation, give me a pulse. Last night, what kind of feedback were you getting online? People tweeting at you, people responding to Cam tweets, the comments on the Locked On. What do we got?
Mostly fine. There are some people who were kind of over the edge, but mostly
Can you
fine.
Give me an example of over the edge.
Oh, I'd have to look back in the live comments.
Okay.
But,
all right.
I mean, some people that were like, Norchad can't even play on this team, and like, how is VJ going to be a top 5 pick with 4 points? And like, there was some of that. And a lot of people talking about what we just talked about in terms of like how many times you're going to get boat raced in one of these games before you stop scheduling them.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, it was, I don't want to say positive, but not completely negative. And there were some people like what we just described of like, obviously they're going to get better. This is not good, but they're going to get better. And then there are some fans, there were a good amount of fans that were like, oh yeah, but it was a road game, which is what I was just talking about. It's like, well, that can't be the excuse. That you're not, if that's the case, then you're not a top 10 team. Then you're not a team with Final Four aspirations, which I think Baylor is. But for the most part, fine. They're not jumping off the ledge. There is such a trust in Scott Drew that it's going to take a lot for that to happen. And there should to some extent, but like there are also some fans that don't find a problem with not making it past the first weekend in NCAA tournament the last 3 years, which I think is an issue. But yes, he is banked a ton of trust. Actually, you know who made a good point is our pal Drake. Before we get out of this, Drake can be very overreactive.
No.
I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah.
But he tweeted about Baylor basketball last night. He said, this is like this effort thing. Like, you've got to look at it like the players have to look in the mirror. As he said, like, from what Scott Drew went through this offseason in terms of getting big fish from the transfer portal, replacing his coaching staff essentially, and turning down Kentucky to come back here with a ton of hype coming into the season. Like, it needs to be better than that. And I think that's a good point by Drake. I do think it will be as well. I do think it will be.
I
not
think
jumping
it'll
off
fix
the list.
itself too. That was the one thing I was going to finish with, is that if there was one glaring concern for me, and this is, I got to stand by it because I feel it, but it's kind of an indictment, was the body language was pretty weak.
I'm
the
a
very
big body
beginning,
language guy.
From the very beginning of the game. And you'd like to see, Baylor. I put Baylor and Villanova on the same pedestal. Villanova under Jay Wright and Baylor under Scott Drew. These guys play a brand of basketball that you can be proud of. As a Baylor alum or a Villanova fan, like, you can be proud of Baylor's players. Like, the effort they exude on the floor, their body language, it's just like, wow, this is an extension of us. This is the front porch of our school. We love that. Last night, I would imagine if you're a Baylor alum, you probably didn't have that sense of pride going. Because look, if they get annihilated, but like the effort's there and they're diving all over the floor, like, it's a little different. But that wasn't the case.
No, it was not. It was not the case. But it's my sincere hope that it will be there pretty soon.
Yeah, it'll be there. All right. Cam Stewart, you can catch him tomorrow on the Rogue Media Network, 11 a.m., the Cam Show. And you got to catch him later on today. ESPN 1660 with Matt Mosley, 4 to 6 Central Time.
One today.
What'd you say?
Be an interesting one
today.
Know.
You guys are great together. So keep up the great work. And segment 3 coming up, the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me, and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned kind of the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
We back? We are back. An abbreviated final segment where we're going to talk about Monday Night Football after that thrilling, moving segment with Cam. And yeah, that was an important segment. I am like so pumped about Baylor basketball this year. I'm going to be doing some games before the conference tournament starts, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into like the roster and build out my broadcasting boards. But last night, obviously, there's a lot to improve upon, and I think they will. One thing that I feel needs no improvement, and maybe I'm a homer because I love Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, but Monday Night Football. And I'll even go as far as the alt cast with Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, obviously. I was watching Monday Night Football last night, and when it got to overtime, I just got the urge. First of all, Monday Night Football, Steve Ackles is the producer, right? The director, I forget who it is. Steve Ackles is the man. He actually helped me get my break into ESPN calling college football, which led to basketball and all the other stuff. But they do such a brilliant job on that show. So the Chiefs were driving to tie the game, And there's like so much going on. There's the time is winding down. The game is obviously very close. And they're right at like, I don't know what a potential field goal would be like 53 yards or 60 yards or something like that. And all of a sudden they go to a video pregame of the Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker. And there's like, well, here he was a few hours ago trying to hit this exact kick. And it's like, boom, he doings it off the field goal, off the goalpost. And this is like practice footage. And I'm like, wow, like that's as brilliant as it gets as far as like dropping a quick piece of context into a broadcast, like where they were pretty much doing like a hurry up offense. And it fit so perfectly. It was executed so beautifully. I was like, damn, that was awesome. Like I literally just watched this dude try to kick a field goal in this exact, like, not situation as far as it had started to rain a little bit. And obviously the stakes are way higher, but it's like, man, that was unbelievable. And then, so then I'm like really just absorbing like the media side of this, right? They do the coin toss, which is super cool. And it's super cool because the only two guys out there for the coin toss, this is for overtime, are Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. And it's clear like there's like some like healthy tension between the two of them, which goes back to their Big 12 playing days. Of course, Baker transferring from Texas Tech to Oklahoma, where he had an amazing career. And of course, Patrick Mahomes, who comes up behind Baker Mayfield, who has an like unbelievable, right? Or not behind him, but alongside him. He's basically a product of Baker transferring. So like all this just amazing stuff. And then I go to watch the Manning cast and Jason Sudeikis. So I'm watching overtime and I turn it on and it's just Peyton and it's Eli, which in itself really is pretty awesome because Eli is super serious watching the game, but he can take any kind of curveball you throw at him. Like he has the face of a guy who does not want to be disturbed watching a football game. But when somebody kicks a joke his way, he handles it beautifully and moves on. So Sudeikis comes back into frame. They're like, hey, it's overtime. So there's Jason Sudeikis. He's sipping on something. He's just got his, AirPods in. And he's being pretty funny. He's obviously a diehard Chiefs fan. And he's making like wisecracks that you almost want to be like, hey, shut up. Like Peyton's paying attention. But like, there's nothing that Peyton can't handle. And after, I guess Eli had said, the players were doing handstand celebrations on Sunday. One of the Lions did it. I think it was St. Brown. And so I guess Eli had said, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong a little bit, if the Chiefs win, I'll do a handstand. Or maybe it was totally impromptu. But the Chiefs end up winning, and the next thing you know, they're showing the celebration on the field, and then go to a full screen now of Eli Manning doing a handstand. Like in his like basement or wherever he films his portion of this. And I was like, man, this is like a pretty awesome like broadcast between the actual game itself and the Manning cast and the humor and the timeliness of that point about Harrison Butker. And then you just got Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, who share this cosmic chemistry that they've developed over the course of so many years. And there's nobody better than Joe Buck. And oh, by the way, I think Joe Buck's wife, Michelle Beisner Buck now, I think her mom died like a couple days ago. So there's a whole lot going on for everybody. Michelle Beisner rejoined Monday Night Football's broadcast last night for the first time since Joe Buck hit a golf ball off her ankle. this is not made up, during the summertime, and like fractured her ankle, so she had to go into surgery. So many moving parts last night. An amazing game. An amazing Manning cast, an amazing ESPN Monday Night Football broadcast. And of course, we wish the Bucks well and hope they're doing great. But that's it for the Pete Sousa Show today. Once again, a lot of fun. I'd like to thank Slovaceks, of course, Crawford Austin Properties, D1, Sikora Family Ford out there in West, and of course, Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers. We'll catch you tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. It really got me what I deserved.
The difference is Stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy to have you today.
No, thanks for having me. And you know we always family no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fits.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the draft for you?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.